Everyone has struggles in life and everyone has different ways of dealing with them. But imagine doing it in the public eye. That is what happens when you are a media personality, a communications person who's active in your community. And that's what we're diving into today on the Hear Me, See Me podcast. Welcome in. I'm your host, Melissa Bruner. Hear Me, See Me is a mental health awareness initiative at WIBW TV based out of Topeka, Kansas. And one of our good media friends, Dave Lewis, is our guest today based out of Manhattan, Kansas, just a little ways down the road. And we've both been doing this for a minute or two.
Yeah, a little bit.
A minute or two.
Yeah, my first radio job, full-time job, was in 1981.
Wow.
So, yeah.
I was born then.
More than you.
I was born then. Yes.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
That makes me feel so much better. But first off, I'd like to say what the initiative that you're doing here with mental health challenges, that's remarkable.
We all have a brain, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
And we always say around here, check on your well friends as well, because you never know. It's not always something very obvious. And I think our conversation today is going to take a lot of different directions, because there is the putting on the public face portion of it. You are wearing pink because this is Breast Cancer Awareness Month. There is the challenge of dealing with health struggles and with dealing with grief and loss and what comes after.
And abuse.
A lot of that.
I was abused when I was a young teen in several different ways that kept me from ever wanting to step foot in the locker room. And I was a fairly good athlete. I think I could have probably gone on to college and played baseball. That was my dream. And I just gave up on that dream. Then I got into music, and then I started mimicking radio people on the tractor radio. It was AM. and I just kind of found my voice and found what I wanted to do.
Interesting. It was funny when you said that. I said before we started recording this, I said, I've had these conversations and I usually am surprised by some of them. So I didn't know that part of your story as a teenager. Where were you growing up? And as much as you care to share, what happened?
There are certain things I don't want to share, but
that's fine.
There are several different types of abuse. But it really clouded me. I grew up on a farm south of Abilene, about 15 miles at the intersection of 4 and 15, little burg called Elmo, population 23, salute. And I went to Hope to grade school and Chapman to high school. And I got involved in music. My family is very musical. My mother is one of these gifted people that could just hear a song on the radio and sit down and play it on the piano. She wrote a lot of music, and we grew up in a Baptist church, very faith-based home. Not really strict, but very faith-based. And, we didn't know that we didn't really have money. We qualified for government cheese. I didn't know what that meant. It was quite a bit different when I changed schools and was exposed to a number of different people. And I was kind of like the new kid that didn't know nobody. And there were some challenges there for me. But then, I kind of got into music, and one of the things that I was able to develop really during that time, and I think even earlier, is my sense of humor. And I think that that's something that has benefited me in a long ways. It is something that I use to connect with people. I love to make people laugh. I love to make people feel special. And I think that has had a lot to do with, some of the dynamics in my ups and downs.
Right.
Emotionally and mentally over the years.
How did humor and laughter, because it can be a deflection, it can be a defense mechanism, but it also can be a road to, as you discovered, resiliency and a healthy way to cope, as opposed to also being an unhealthy. Did you find that balance as you were kind of going through different things, especially moving into adulthood, before you found that voice that you found with a passion through music and radio?
The humor side of things is something that I love to tell jokes. I mean, I used to tell jokes when I was taking grain into the elevator, during harvest. I remember one time I got a little carried away telling jokes that Mom had to call the elevator and asked if I was still there. They were a little worried about me. And well, the hopper on the combine was full and I needed to get my butt back home. But, I found that people responded to my humor. And I just, I feel like I'm pretty quick-witted. And I feel like I'm pretty well versed in a lot of things. I loved watching Johnny Carson growing up. And Carol Burnett, and not just Carol Burnett, but Tim Conway. Brilliant. Jonathan Witters, a lot of these people that, were just key comedic figures. I really became enthralled with Robin Williams.
It was when you said Jonathan Winters, I'm like, oh my gosh, we've been
Yeah.
watching Mork and Mindy reruns on
Yep.
Saturday mornings
Yeah.
and just recalling how much of the interplay when Jonathan Winters came on and was
Yeah.
their son, and how much of that was ad-libbed and whether it was scripted at all because of how they were going back and forth. But talk about people who are funny on the surface but have this other thing going on underneath. That's Robin
And I will
Williams.
tell you, when I had heard about Robin Williams taking his life, that hit me like a rock, because I really felt like that was very much me on a much smaller scale. Robin Williams is, iconic. There are a lot of people in Manhattan that know who I am. And so I felt like on a very small level, that was me, because I had been struggling for so long with things that triggered me into some very dark, deep depression moments.
And that would have been, was that before or after your wife passed away?
It started, I think it really started there in high school.
Okay.
I didn't realize it. We didn't know these things. I mean, when you talked about mental health and depression and those types of things, I'm going to go back a little bit. Thomas Eagleton, who was a senator from Missouri, had talked about going into therapy. And when that came in, he's unstable. He was running for president. He's unstable. He's not going to be able to do that. And I just remembered that. I remember that guy who had the opportunity to really become probably a great president. And it's not a partisan thing. I don't even have a party anymore, but there are several things that just really feel like I think when you're in the public, and there are certain things that can really put a lot of pressure on you. You know what this is like. It's tough to go to the grocery store. It's tough to go anywhere to do anything in public and just have maybe some moments with your husband. And that's one of the things I love about, like you have your farm. That's your happy place together.
Little escape.
Yeah, exactly. And I've had my own little escapes. I call myself an entertainment entrepreneur, and I do a lot of different things. I worked as a club DJ, and then I started DJing weddings, and then I got into doing karaoke and trivia and game shows and music bingo, and I MC a lot of events. So I'm out there a lot.
So you're young.
And I did radio too in all that time.
And so you're young, getting started in the career. You hear about this person with an aspiring political career saying he's going into therapy. It kind of derails the career. And what message was that sending to you?
At that time, I didn't know that it really was a message, other than it's just like, gosh, that's too bad. It was a little bit later on. I went into some therapy after a failed relationship, and a lot of this I had stymied talk. I mean, I did not talk about it, didn't think about it. Some things that happened to me in school when I was a kid. And then once I revealed some of those memories, once they came back, it just like, that explains a lot of things. Challenges with relationships. It helped me understand a lot more. And then I had a wonderful marriage with my late wife. We got married in 1992. Had a beautiful daughter together in 95. Yeah, she's going to be 30. We just felt like we had the world by the tail. And then cancer came along, as breast cancer, and she passed about 5 years later in 2006. Our daughter was 10. And at the time, I was still doing full-time radio and morning show radio. You know what the obligations are, like, you got to be there at 6, or, everybody knows you're late for work.
Right.
And so I had to give up a career. And I found some other things to do. I basically lived off life insurance, what money I did make, doing events. I kind of curtailed a lot of those because I used to travel. I've been in 13 states doing events now. And many of those happened before my wife passed away. But that really, the depression, I think, kind of started before she passed. And and I was just talking the other day at you're familiar with the Johnson Cancer Research Center up at K-State. I spoke to them at what they call the power luncheon. And, you know, you got a bunch of people that are cancer survivors, cancer patients, cancer medical care, a lot of people that are there that are dealing with cancer one way or another. And you know, that fear of being that caregiver or that spouse, that's almost cataclysmic. It just, you know, it's overpowering, but you can't show fear. I mean, your main job is to make sure that that patient, that spouse, that child, that parent, whatever it is, whatever that relationship is, you've got to be strong for them. And you've got to make sure that they have every opportunity to live, which, unbeknownst to us at the time, may have been their last days. Mm-hmm. And so after she passed, I had a little business venture that just failed miserably, and I really felt for a long time that I had let her down. And that really put me into a dark spot. You know, our daughter was 10. There were times where I couldn't get out of bed, and if I couldn't get out of bed, my daughter didn't have to go to school. And we just watched movies together. You know, there was a bonding thing, you know, and I'm, you know, right or wrong, that's what worked. There are no real set patterns for everybody that's dealing with grief or depression or anxiety or whatever it is. I feel like you have to figure out what works for you. And therein lies the rub. That's hard to get to. That's really hard to get to that point. You know, and I just remember it's just like going to the grocery store in Manhattan. It would take me 2.5 hours because people would come up, want to see how I'm doing. Very thankful for that, but it was agonizing at the same time. I had, you know, I've had opportunities to leave Manhattan, and I just couldn't because I just felt like the town just really held me up in a lot of respects. And I'm very grateful for that.
If we go back through several phases of your life, though, so even before you met your late wife, you realize now that there were probably some things going on there with you in terms of unresolved trauma from school days. But with your wife, you were able to cope.
Yeah.
Then you get this diagnosis.
I had a whole new lease on life.
What kind of face did you feel you had to, and you touched on this, how does that affect a caregiver, a loved one, in terms of being able to express what you were going through? Did you find support channels, or did you feel like you couldn't reach out for support because your job was to support someone else?
So she's been gone almost 20 years. So, you know, between that 20 and 25 year ago time frame, there really wasn't that many places to go. I mean, I had friends that helped me out, that would just listen. And I got to tell you, Melissa, just being able to provide an ear, sometimes that's all they need, is just that outlet. I didn't seek professional help at the time, but there was just, it was just overpowering. And then after she passed, there's just, you know, and I talk about the crappy things that you have to deal with when you are the one left behind. You know, there's the business of death that a lot of people don't take into consideration. You know, gosh, in 10 days you're going to get that death certificate. When you see that, you know, you've got everything from funeral planning, all the people that come, and we had a lot of people. And one of the things, you know, and I've done a lot of different things, you know, in front of microphones. One of my greatest and most proud moments was being able to speak at her funeral. And that wasn't easy, but I scripted it out. I told our pastor, Jim Reed, who's a remarkable man, and I was sitting next to my daughter, and I said, I want you to just look over. If you feel like I'm doing okay and she's doing okay, I'll get up. But if not, just take it. And so I got up there. It was just like overwhelming, you know, seeing all these people that knew one of us, either of us, both of us, as a couple. And, you know, those first few days, there's this outpouring. And, you know, and one of the things that I did learn is that, you know, that sometimes it's awkward for people to say, I'm so sorry, you know, what can I do? I remember when so-and-so passed, all these different things. You know, to me, it doesn't matter what you say, but I know you care. And that's as powerful as anything. And there's also that power of prayer. And that's something that I truly feel carried me through a lot of that time.
Even if it took you 2 hours to get through the grocery store?
That was exhausting. I ended up going to Wamego or Junction City. I even came up to Topeka to get groceries because I just wanted to get away.
And you're not saying that to be ungrateful, as
no,
you said,
not at
for
all.
the people
not
who
at all.
were
But I just
expressing support.
needed that escape.
But it led to depression then.
Yeah.
And what
yeah.
was the turning point for you? When did you realize that I'm not getting out of bed and that is not normal and I need to do something because I'm not in a healthy state right now?
You know, this is a kind of a funny, kind of an interesting turn of events. A month after my wife passed, I got a call from a friend of mine up at Kansas State. Now, I had done a lot of different things with K-State as an MC for pep rallies, and I'm pretty well established in Manhattan on a stage in front of a microphone and on radio. And Jim Muller's his name. He was in the athletic department. He said, hey, we need someone to fill in for a women's basketball game as the PA announcer. Would you be interested in that? And I talked to my daughter about it. I said, well, I'd like to try it. I need 3 tickets for my daughter, a friend, and a parent, and I want them right behind me. And that evolved in a few months to me becoming the full-time main announcer for football and men's basketball. And that was a real uplifting moment, a month after. And, you know, and I often thought about how proud Elena would be to be able to do that. Because the guy that preceded me in that capacity, he was so good. Ivan was so good, and you know, he helped create that environment, you know, and fed off of everything that was the success that Bill Snyder was bringing. And to be able to be a part of that was very significant. And that really helped give me some wings.
You found a purpose. You had a purpose again.
Purpose isn't the word that I would use, but an opportunity.
Okay.
And I felt like I was shortchanging my life and opportunities because I had this wonderful marriage, you know, this love of my life. And, but it definitely gave me something to build on. And, you know, I did that for 15 years. You know, I told you I'm a bit of an entrepreneur, an entertainment entrepreneur, and it helped me build my brand, but I had a lot of fun. Got a lot of great memories.
Absolutely.
And I'll forever be grateful to K-State for giving me that opportunity.
So at the same time, as this kind of was instrumental in finding your path forward and recovering, at the same time you said it hit you when Robin Williams took his own life.
Well, there have been a lot of other things that had happened.
Okay.
After my wife passed, I remarried, and it didn't last long. I have a son, and that's always been, love the kid to death, but there are obviously challenges when, you know, after divorce and a lot of things like that. I had been encouraged by a number of people over the years, and the opportunity came for me to get into an elected capacity. So I ran for county commission in Riley, and I won. I really enjoyed that role. I felt like it was an opportunity for me to get back to the community that had supported me so much. But there were some decisions I made that weren't popular, and I was diselected in the next, I got primaried. And then just as that happened, I was starting another relationship, and there was a lot of things that I was just really, really challenged with. And then it wasn't long after that Robin took his life. And I was emceeing an event in the city park, and Robin Cole, who's the director of Pawnee Mental Health, asked me to be there, and she could tell. It was written all over my face. I wasn't in a good place. And so I got back in and found a therapist that I was really good and understanding for me. It's not one I felt like I could really relate to. And, you know, I'll always be a proponent for seeking help, even if you feel like you don't need it.
What was the difference in how Robin asked as opposed to, or not Robin, or was that her name as well?
Elaine, Robin Cole.
Robin Cole.
From,
Her name.
Mental Health.
For a second there, I was like, wait.
Sure.
What was the difference in how she asked if you were okay versus how maybe other people in your life had been asking if you were okay? You know what I'm saying.
I think
the
the fact
okays
that
where people say, I'm good, but she obviously said something different.
I think the fact that she could see, it was painfully obvious. I mean, I didn't just not want to be there. Now, I did the job, and I did a nice job. Because, you know, when you're on stage, when you're in front of the camera, you got to do your job. Though sometimes it may be more painful than others. But she could tell. And she said, "Are you okay?" And we just had a frank conversation there in the park about that. And the timing of it, and that's one of those, I feel like that's a God thing. That it just kind of came in, and it's just like, yeah, maybe I should. I was pretty stubborn. But I, you know, when I connected with her on that, you know, and then we talked about, you know, the Robin Williams scenario, and it's just like, I felt myself headed in that direction. My daughter didn't deserve that. My son didn't deserve that.
And it has been moving forward since.
Moving forward. You know, I had a little health episode. I've had a couple little health episodes in the last 5 years, 5.5 years. I had a pacemaker put in. My heart rate fell to 32 beats per minute.
Oh my.
Yeah.
That's
yeah.
probably not healthy.
No, I was working out. I know this is weird, me working out. And I was feeling tired. I felt my pulse, and it's just like, boom, boom. And I looked at my watch, and it's just like, and I talked to my trainer, and she says, that doesn't seem right. No. I said, I'm just going to go home and crash. Took some aspirin, and the next morning I was still, I'd come back into the radio station 10 years after my wife passed. And I was working there just doing the morning shows and basically kind of a foolish part-time job. And which I was very grateful for that opportunity. But I was on the air and got done, and I just like, I need to check, you know, and it was down to 32. So I called the doctor, and he says, you need to get her now. And it was like a crash cart scene out of ER, you know, they're not used to bringing EKGs into the doctor's office. And he sent me off, and I had a pacemaker, you know, a couple hours later. My brain and all of its infinite capacities wasn't telling my heart to beat. But I was overweight, diagnosed with type 2 diabetes. 2.5 years ago, I had a heart attack right after an event. And I have what's called aneurysmic arteries, which can't do a bypass, no stents, you know. So they got me on blood thinners so that blood cells don't coagulate in the arteries. There's little bumps in there. And so I've got to be very conscientious of that. So don't poke me with the needle, because I'll bleed. It'll look nice and red on your couch. But that triggered a scary time. A scary time for that. That put me back down into another world.
That identity crisis of, am I going to be able to do what I've always wanted to do, or am I just done?
What do I need to do? Do I need to get one of those next of kin kits? You know, start putting getting my stuff together. I think when you go through something like that, you know, the mortality and the thought that I may not be here in a couple of weeks or whatever the case may be, it kind of sets in with you. And so I had another trigger there. Since, I've had some great doctors that have helped me get back on track physically. I lost 50 some pounds, and I will tell you that probably has done as much for me as anything, because I feel so much better looking at myself. And as a public person, you're very conscientious. Mm-hmm. You know what it's like to be in front of a camera, on stage, which you are a lot. You're always conscientious about not just not what you wear, just what you wear, but also your physical appearance.
Right.
And I dropped 50 pounds down to 205, which my daughter had never seen me at 205, and that certainly helped. And then I bumped into a gal at lunch.
And we want to talk about the happiness and kind of where you are now and how that leads to advice for other people. We'll be continuing our conversation with Dave Lewis in just a moment. We are back on the Hear Me, See Me podcast, continuing our conversation with Dave Lewis. And Dave, you've just detailed your journey through things that happened when you were in school, and then a journey through really depression, grief, loss, and finding a new path in life, following your own health issues, which is interesting because you're right. I think, my dad went through this after he had a heart attack. It's okay, I've done all this work to get healthy, and now here I had a heart attack anyway. Now what do I do?
Yeah.
Right? And so it did bring up that question. Are you going to be able to do the things that you'd love to do? But it led to love for you.
It surprised me. It surprised her. I happened to be at AJ's, the pizza place, having a piece of pizza by myself. It was like 2 years ago. And in walked a gal that I've known since I moved to Manhattan in '91. She was the 4-H agent at the time. Her name is Sherilyn. And we've always been friendly. She was out at the radio station once a month doing a radio show, and sometimes I'd help her. And we just always had, it was just always fun and friendly. And her husband had passed away. It'll be 4 years coming up in December. And I didn't really know him, but one of the things that I feel like this has really been healing for me. Whenever I encounter someone who's going through a similar situation, I like to reach out. I remember, and one of the most pivotal times, I remember that I have a good friend whose dad passed away, and I was friends with his mother. And I said, hey, if your mom ever wants to talk, I do that. I don't know how many people that have been in the same boat, 2-3 dozen or more, that I have tried to at least reach out to and say, hey, it's doable. Mm-hmm. Just to try to get them, understanding where they are. And so anyway, this friend, she never reached out to me, but I saw her one day, and she came up to me and gave me the biggest hug, and she said, I know that you've been reaching out to me, but being here today and seeing you stand tells me that I can do it too. And that was a pretty profound opportunity for me. So I found that being able to reach out to other people who are grieving, and it's not, I'm more interested, probably not interested, but understanding of people who have lost their spouse than a child, which I couldn't possibly bear to understand. I lost my parents in 2011. That was hard, really, really hard on me. God, Mom and Dad were so proud of the whole K-State thing, and then the county commission thing. Dad wrote the first check to my for my account.
You had their support.
I had their support. Yeah, and but anyway.
But those shared experiences, knowing, it reinforced for you that you weren't alone, and if that was important for you to know, you now are imparting that same feeling.
And I have done a
others.
lot of that through social media. I've posted a lot of things. I continue to express my love for my late wife. I had this always have, always will phrase in my mind that whether on significant days, birthdays, anniversaries, day of her passing, whatever, I like to write something. And I know that I've had a lot of people that have reached out to me and have read that and talk about how powerful it is to be able to keep that love alive.
Mm-hmm. And you would expect nothing less from your current wife, I imagine. That understanding.
Well, you kind of jumped the gun on the whole current wife thing. It's been just a little over a month.
I know.
But we feel like it's a God thing.
Yeah.
We're just giddy. So Sherilyn was the 4-H agent. We bumped into each other, and we just talked about the crappy things about dealing with death and trying to get back on track. And she reached out to me, a couple months later, and said, "Hey, let's get together for lunch." And so we were getting together for lunch, and had this, lunch time, and I really didn't think of it as a date per se at the moment, but open to it. I mean, she's a brilliant, beautiful, wonderful woman. But we're going to get together for lunch. And then I happen to have fall in my lap a pair of tickets to go see Pretty Woman the musical up at McCain, and I was going to take my daughter, but she couldn't come. Well, that opened up a door.
Mm-hmm. There you go.
So I asked
right
her,
on in.
and it's been a whirlwind ever since.
Yeah.
We have so much in common. She grew up in Marion County, about 30 miles from where I grew up. Different religious perspectives in some respect. She's Mennonite, and I've become part of the Mennonite church there. I grew up in a Baptist church, and I like being able to sing out of a hymnal, which a lot of churches don't have hymnals anymore. Okay, at my age, I like doing that. It brings me back to, and she plays the piano there, and that's a whole nother story that I just love to tell. My mother wrote a lot of hymns and some music, which by today's standards would be contemporary Christian. And, she first saw the book, and there was this one song that I just absolutely loved. We got together at my home church, on Memorial Day to go out to the cemetery, and here's Mom's book in the piano bench, and I look at it and I said, "This is the one. I just love this." The girl sits down and plays it, and that pretty much told me, yeah, this is the where we're headed. But we are just having so much fun. We, I gave up the K-State gig about 5 years ago, but now I get a Wabash with her in the stands. She's a season ticket holder.
All different perspective.
I proposed in April at the K-State Gardens, caught her by surprise, which I was hoping to. And then we got married September 20th, and we had the most wonderful day.
You just have the newlywed glow about you.
We've had it since we started talking. And, I like to say the phrase, we're just giddy about each other. And we feel very blessed. We just are having so much fun together. And what's really, some of the neat things about this is that we've got a lot of common friends because, both of us are well established in Manhattan. And they're all thrilled for us.
Fantastic.
And, walking into the ceremony was one thing. We had an ice cream social after the ceremony. No one's ever done that. I'm proud of that. And then...
wondering where my invite got lost in the mail, though. If there was ice cream involved, I should have been there.
There's a lot of people that didn't get invited. We could have had 1,000, 2,000 people attend, but it was.
But when I think about this is a full circle journey, because once again, it comes back to being willing to reach out. So if you had to offer advice to people, what is the importance from both sides of the equation of reaching out?
Don't be ashamed. There's obviously fear, but there's comfort in knowing that other people have gone through it, other people have survived, and some thrive. That does not mean that you have to give up those memories of what you had. she had a great marriage also. And, and one of the things I'm really proud of at our reception, I gave grace. And, we had people from all over. 5 of Elena's siblings came for the wedding, 3 of them from out of state. I gave grace, and I acknowledged the fact that, Lord, we'd like to think that not only that, thank you for our parents, that they're there with you, and we also like to think that Larry and Elena are celebrating with us, by your side. And we have always been cognizant of those marriages, those loves. We have shared all kinds of stories. Both of us accept those past loves as part of our history. And I've had relationships where, it's just like there have been jealousies because of the way I felt and continued to celebrate the love I had for my late wife. But that was, the first few times we got together, that's what we talked about. I mean, our first, it didn't really seem like dating, but boy, we shed a lot of tears together those first few weeks. And I like to think that we found comfort in each other, that we could both relate, to what that's like, being that caregiver. Hers was a tough situation. He'd had cancer for 9 years, and it was brutal. But every story is different. But being able to share your story and be confident that it's not going to change the dynamics of what you have together is wonderful. And so it doesn't happen often enough where people find that second opportunity. But like I said, we feel like it's a God thing. And we like to stand as an example of, love is attainable. Love is something that you can find. You have to be open to it. But the other thing is that you have to be ready for it. And being ready for it is, I think, probably one of the biggest challenges as a widowed person to get to that point. It can take years. Some it takes months. Sometimes it can take decades. You just never know. But you have to be ready for it when it comes along.
The other piece of your story that I think is important for folks to reinforce, and maybe you have a message on this as well, is the asking of the question, are you okay? Asking the question, meaning the question, instead of it being just a thing that we say to each other, but then also having someone there who's willing to listen.
Yeah. I am as okay as I've been in years. Since before my wife was diagnosed with cancer. I'm motivated again to do things. I feel like I've got creativity. I still struggle with drive. I do have, so I'm 64, I'm slowing down a little bit, but I pace myself differently. So I'm not exhausted. When you get exhausted, bam, that's when things can really mount up on you. But physically, I'm about as healthy as I've been in years. And that's a big part. I don't have that fear of like, I'm going to kick the bucket here, and my daughter's got to deal with all the crap that's in my storage shed. I don't wish that on anybody. But it's a new lease on life from a lot of different perspectives. Not only do I have this wonderful, that I have found love again, I feel like I have found purpose again. And I feel like I have found faith again, because that power of prayer over the years, and I'm not the most prayerful person, but I believe in it. and I'm not the greatest Christian, but I know what I believe. But those things evolve, and they create opportunities. And I think the fact that, you know, when you are in a position where you're open to it, that says quite a bit.
What difference does it make to ask that question of our well friends? Why should we not be scared to do that? To say, are you okay?
A lot of us admit to defeat early. And it's just like, okay, I'm dealing with depression. You know, one of the things that it surprised me when I first was talking to my doctor about, and this is while, you know, Elena was dealing with it, and he said, if you thought about taking any antidepressants, because I was going through some studies, and it's just like, ding, 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 I'm dealing with a lot of crap. And I said, hey, man, I really don't want to. And the doctor said, you know, 40% of my practice is on some sort of antidepressant or anxiety medication. He says, it's nothing to be ashamed of.
Well, that's that attitude I think a lot of people have to get past.
Yeah.
Don't be ashamed of it. This is something we can talk about. This is something that you can admit to when someone asks you the question.
And I think one of the things that's really been therapeutic for me, Melissa, is been able to talk about not just, you know, being that surviving spouse, but also being upfront. And like I've done some work with Pawnee. I've done a video for them talking about, you know, some of the challenges that I faced. And to be able to do that has been empowering. But here you have to have the mindset that I want to help people. You know, we can get into the whole woe is me. Trust me, I've been there. I still have those moments. But when you can impact others, you know, just by going up and saying, how you doing? You know, can I give you a hug? The power of hugs is amazing, if you're a hugger. Not everybody is. and to be able to reach out, I feel like I'm doing something God wants me to do.
Well, I appreciate you being here to share your story today. I think there's a lot that people can get out of it.
I hope so.
Yeah.
You know, there's a lot of hope. It takes a lot of things. You know, for me, I think it takes faith. It takes, you know, there's help that's out there. There are a lot of places where you can find help. You know, there were times, I had talked about, there were times where I thought my daughter would be better off without me. And, you know, there were times that, I felt like jumping off a bridge or whatever. There were times where, when I was on the commission, I had a threat made on my life. That gets your attention when the police show up and say, hey, Commissioner Lewis, you need to know there's been a threat made on your life. And my daughter, I think she was 16 at the time, do we need to get a gun? Which, I got no problem with guns, but I didn't think that I was in the right frame of mind to have one in my house. And so there's so many little stories that I could tell. We could go on and on, but I know you only have so much time, and our listeners and viewers only have so much patience. But you know, just being able to share the stories, being able to get that out, and just like sitting here and visiting with you, it is empowering. And knowing that hopefully someone can have a little takeaway from what we've shared together here today, I hope it impacts others. And I hope it gives them a desire to take that step and find help or find a church or find someone that can help walk them through, because you can't do it alone.
We all need each other.
We do.
They appreciate you.
Thank you for what you're doing here with this.
You bet.
This is great for our community. It's great for the people. It's great for the people.
And we do have a lot of resources on WIBW.com/hearmesee-me. If you're listening and you hear something that you want immediate help, immediate attention, either for yourself or a loved one, the 988 hotline, great place to start. Your local NAMI organization in Kansas, we have NAMI Kansas, we have local chapters. They can connect you with people in your area because, as Dave said, you can't do it alone. And just by reaching out, you will know that we hear you, we see you.